Okay, I think now is a good time for us to officially begin the live stream. Alright, so just to give up some heads up to everyone here that I'm gonna go for desktop audio instead of letting Racing Master's main audio play out on its own, because I have prepared some unique soundtracks. So unfortunately, no Dover Syndrome tonight for our battle music. I have pre-selected 3 specific tracks that are on a 1-hour loop to grace us during this session of our Racing Master Nurburgring Masterclass. So if you are in, let me know that you can actually see the live. Do share it with your friends and let us actually get on with the festivities. So, okay, let me just load up my Racing Master here. So just to give a recap to anybody and everybody who has watched the previous live streams. So, on lesson 1, we covered sports class alongside the featured banner car, which is the Maserati MC20 Cielo. Then on the second stream, we've covered extreme class with the Koenigsegg Jesko, followed by the third stream, which was yesterday, where we were focused on standard class with the JZA80 Supra. Now, what's left for us to actually cover on this live stream of ours, of Racing Masters Nurburgring Masterclass? Well, 2 things. As mentioned, there are 2 variants of the Nurburgring. We have the dry and we have the wet. Well, technically not wet. It's more of cloudy than wet. And on the wet variant, there is more penalties, but we have more freedom to maximize the entire track. Meanwhile, in the dry, there is no grass penalties. However, the barricades have been extended to restrict our maximum usage of the track. So both have the pros and cons, and both are to be tackled separately. So for tonight, our agenda is as follows. The first half would be a grip racing masterclass featuring free-to-play vehicles, specifically the BMW M2 for standard, which is the 2026 car year, the Jaguar F-Type Project 7, which is the 2025 car year, and in Extreme we actually have 2 selectable vehicles. One of them is during if you are a first-time player and you have gained it after completing 2 weeks of playing or logging into Racing Master, which is the Ferrari F8 Tributo, which is surprising actually that we can grip the vehicle, and the BMW M8 GTE. Those would be our showcase vehicles for tonight's masterclass, and that's what we're going to be focusing on first. So don't worry about the music. I'm gonna load it up later when we officially begin the time attacks. So, saving the best for last, we would be doing the dry session for all F2P grip sessions. So obviously we're gonna start off at standard class. And just to give you a benchmark of the time that we're going to be pulling in, I would be in the BMW M2, which is clocked at around 6 minutes 22. So I am wishing and or hoping that we'll be able to get lower than 6 minutes 22. I doubt I'll be able to get to 6 minutes 19. However, I am free and in liberty to share to you the ideal tuning setup for the Nurburgring, which would actually surprise you. So that being said, I shall now load the very first music track, which is befitting for the start. Let me know as well if the balance is okay between the music, the game audio, and myself. Music and game audio would be merged in onto one audio layer, and I'll be on a separate layer, which would actually be priority for docking. So this is the tuning setup I have for the BMW M2 for grip. We have a tune setup of 1, 2, 1, 3, 2. Because normally you would be expecting, Myogi, aren't you supposed to be in top speed for a track like the Nurburgring? I've actually done my test earlier before the stream, and surprisingly, this tune is far more inferior despite the fact that it guarantees us a minimum of green settings for the entire performance circle. For this case, I am going to stick to a 1-2-1-3-2 setup. It may shock everyone, but there are some benefits to this. As you can see, we have a triple S rank on handling. So let's start off with the standard class. And among the cars that we're going to be showcasing tonight, this is by far the easiest car to grip throughout the green hell. So as we've tackled the previous lessons, we are to maximize the entire map. And the thing with grip driving is that, let's actually restart. And the thing with grip driving is that you have a second tool that would help you in increasing your cornering radius, and it's none other than deceleration, something that is most of us neglect and harder to pull off, especially when we are doing drifts. Also, like I mentioned, the dry version has no grass penalty, so feel free to maximize the track and incorporate those in your racing line. So do note, with grip driving, you may have some instability such as those. When you do oversteer, what you want to do is that you're not supposed to oversteer into any of these sections of the green hell, as one small mistake, especially if you are in the Nordschleife variant, would instantly cost you your entire run. So I'm going to let the penalty from the wall hits earlier stay as is, but we will see if there are any sections where we could recuperate the losses. So clearly, that was the not so ideal line. So we'll do one reset. When we do the showcases, it's okay for me to do the resets, because I want to show you the right ways to initiate grip driving around the green hell. Such as that one. So before the drift markers, you are to start braking and or decelerating, because you want to have at least throttle on the M2 as you go through the corner, to maximize both speed and your angle control. And if you are going understeering or veering to the outside, disengaging the throttle would be the most helpful approach to such attempts. So when I was doing the practice session earlier, I was actually up against another BMW M2 that was drifting through most, if not the entirety, of the green hell. Not saying that it was bad, because we've seen it yesterday during the battle between Keyaru and Uehara Aichan, who was doing a grip versus drift with the BMW M2 respectively. So we're entering the uphill into section 2 once again. Disengage the gas just to get some cornering radius in. So you can see Zidane ABR is taking the much more ideal line, the ideal grip line throughout that section. You can go absolutely wide there. Less braking the better into that corner entry with how wide that corner was. Be careful when you go through that hard turn right before this S-curves, as the corner exit is much more narrow than you expect, so high chances for you to hit the wall there. Also, when doing grip runs, brake in a straight road, as braking while cornering actually extends your braking distance. So cutting a lot of those sections in section 2 would definitely help us there. And a basic out and out is the much better approach. Careful when you actually hit the inner wall, as you may oversteer and commit such unwanted or unnecessary drifts. So I'll actually go for a round 2 on this one, so I would let the run play out. I actually got too much time in on extreme class, so I kind of neglected how I was able to do this earlier with the faster 622 lap time, which actually performed way much faster than my R34 run. Also, the reason why I selected those aforementioned cars, the M2, the F-Type, the M8, and the F8, is because they are accessible to everyone by merely just playing the game. Okay, the carousel is one of the tricky sections to do grip running, as an improper entry into the carousel would cost you and force you into a drift. And initiating the carousel correctly in a grip entry would actually grant you a massive lead and cornering speed as opposed to a drift approach, unless you are in a car with a passive such as the MC20 Cielo or the Initial D NSX. So in this section, you're better off decelerating more than actually extending your braking. That way you can carry more speed throughout those corners. So the main point with doing a grip run over a drift run, if you're say in a car like the M2, it's a matter of committing to the racing line that you want to initiate, and to be able to gauge when you are supposed to be braking, given by default you are with a drift racing line. So I will explain later why on that carousel that was a poor attempt and how you could initiate it better. The sudden dip in the angle of the road would serve as some sort of gutter where you can ride said gutter to gain more corner entry and to push your car further into the corner while maintaining your top speed. Also, when I was doing the attempt earlier with the 6 minutes 22, I chose the engine 1 over engine 2 because I was able to top out much quicker in the final section than in engine 2. In engine 2, I can actually get a higher top speed, assuming there is someone I can slipstream with, but it took me a much later time to hit beyond 250. So we'll do one more clean run. I just warmed myself up for that one. So also, there is a opportunity for you to maximize the use of the rumble strips. You can use it to deliberately imbalance your car, to push you further into a corner, or just to get that one slight additional bump to give you the right understeer back into the ideal racing line. And when you're doing those slight corners, corner tapping is much more better than oversteering in. Less speed loss, the better. Also, when you're doing the corner exits, commit to the gas when you get to the corner exit. Don't disengage the gas mid-exit so that you can still keep your momentum and overall speed against the competition. And when you're doing shortcuts such as that, always aim for a straight line. So less turn-ins, the better, because you really want to maximize that speed as you go through the corner. Okay, we're kind of safe there. Nearly touched the outer wall. Yeah, you see that moment when I rode into the rumble strip, I suddenly oversteered? There will be moments where that is beneficial. But use it sparingly, don't use it all the time, or you may end up skidding your vehicle through the corner and you may either hit the inner wall or you may lose out overall speed. Although I also mentioned that cornering and braking can really ruin your chances, there will be some corners where that can actually be much more beneficial, especially if you are unsure of the corner entry speeds that you are going into, if you are braking too much or if you are braking too little. If you brake too much, you're going to lose out on even more speed, even if you have the better acceleration. As you can see there, Zidane tapped the wall and I can maximize that. I cornered earlier on that corner. And I overshot that corner, so he overtook me there. And here comes the carousel. He would take a better line than I do right here. The ideal way to approach the carousel is an out, out, in. So when you get to the apex, that's where you slowly veer into the carousel. So you stay on the outer lane. Because if you go on the inner lane, there's a high chance you may oversteer and lose out speed as you enter through the corner. So in this section, decelerate more. But make sure you are within the gear that you are in. Get as close as you can to the inside. Like that one slight moment of hesitation is what can totally break your grip run. So when grip driving, you really gotta commit to the act. Also be careful in certain corners like that one when you enter the rumble strips or the curbs. And that is a bad approach into the carousel. As you can see, I lost even more speed than I originally intended. So what are normally the specifications or requirements of a car that is ideal for grip driving? Initially, my judgment is a car that has better brakes on normal braking, not better brakes when you press the handbrake or the drift brake. If the car performs really well on regular braking and slows down quite a lot, you know that is a good car to use for grip driving. Second requirement is that they should also have a really high steering stat. The M2 here is a best example because the high steering stat value has on ECU 5 is triple S. And if you notice, outside of select corners, I was actually able to keep it between gears 3 and gear 4. So that would be your best approach on such corners. And compared to earlier, on my practice run, this was far worse. But against the run earlier, I was able to recover 2 seconds. So that is a straight run on standard class with the BMW M2. The next race we're going to be focusing is sports class with a very unusual car pick. And it is none other than the F-Type Project 7. So this was my test run against myself. So more like against a default car. And I did a test run as well against Folky. Folky here is going to be doing a drift run on the Project 7. I'll be focusing on just a grip run. So this is the F-Type Project 7. If you have been playing since Season 1, you're guaranteed to get this to ECU 5. Performance index is not too extravagant. As you can see, it is equal to that of an ECU 0 MC20 Maserati. And just a little under an ECU 0 Murcielago. But among those cars in my list currently, the only one that is also a double S rank on handling is the Jaguar XJ220. However, because of the wide length and girth of this Jaguar, it is nigh easy to get this to drift. Unlike the Jaguar XJ220, the F-Type has honestly much better brakes than its supercar brother. So we're actually going to be maining this for our grip run. And I will switch over to the other soundtrack that I have prepared. So again, people don't expect to use the F-Type Project 7 in a grip race, but I was doing a test earlier and it is possible. On a course such as the Nurburgring, yes, it is good. But would I recommend the same on other tracks such as Seoul and Amsterdam? I don't think so. So attack it the same method as you would do with the BMW M2. And this is a car that strictly requires you to brake more on a straight line than the other vehicles in RM. Also, because it's just a double S minus, not a triple S, some corners will indeed require you to decelerate more than usual. As you can see, my braking is far more better. Wait, damn it, I got an ad. I got a freaking ad. Why? Do not give me ads, please. Wait, gotta bump up the music a bit. The ad ruined their pace, guys. Let me just restart just to set the mood. As you can see, the F-Type Project 7 for grip run is doable, is versatile. As you can see on the first section, I was able to overtake Folky and keep my lead up. And Bane just subscribed, making me hit wall. Thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing. Okay, but we've also noticed that Folky braked more on that one high-speed corner than I did. A little bit of a tap, but that should not be a problem for us. So this one is a proper drift versus grip battle, given the F-Type is much more used as a drift car than it is for grip driving. Again, I'll be doing 2 runs, just like what we did with the M2 earlier. This one is just for me to get used to the F-Type once again. Because I did it took me a while to understand grip driving with the Project 7. So unlike the M2 as well, this would totally maximize the road space that you are in. The M2 can oversteer itself into safety. The F-Type cannot. So a lot of deceleration is required for you to hold your racing line when you're doing a grip run with the F-Type. But what is better compared to the M2, the F-Type can hold a much higher top speed, since the F-Type among sports class cars has a really high top speed rating. Or speed rating for that matter. Yeah, as you can notice there, the braking distance with the F-Type Project 7 is much shorter. Okay, as we have discussed in the previous streams, grip runs actually dominate here better in Section 3 on certain vehicles. Because the F-Type wheel spins a lot when you're drifting it. So that is a huge deterrent against someone, like say in an F-Type doing a grip run. All that wheel spin from drifting is making you lose out on potential top speed. As you see there, on that second carousel, the F-Type loses out on balance. Meanwhile, we're able to go through in a much faster pace. And we may be slow. The slow in, fast out method is what I normally call it. So earlier, I was slow because I did hit wall. But suddenly, Folky here drifted at the corner exit, the second half of that last corner, where we capitalized by holding a grip line. And now we are roughly 0.4 seconds ahead of Folky's F-Type. And again, because the braking of the F-Type is so strong, you can actually just tap brake on that last section of the F-Type. But I'll do another session again. 620, I think I can do much lower than 620. So as long as we don't clock in our time, we can face off against Folky for a second moment. That way I can have a much better view of his drift run. Also, unlike the M2, there is more understeer in the Project 7, but don't worry, when grip driving, understeer is expected and is actually much welcome when doing a grip run. Also, let me check on the chat while I'm on a long straight. Rinabut Plank said, you have a Murcielago, MC20 in RM, JP in Asia. Congratulations to you. Okay, I hesitated a little bit there, but I only hesitated once. That's like your one buffer. You only have one chance to self-correct yourself. Any more than one self-correction would actually cost you your pace. Okay, here, keep it as straight as possible. Do early turn-ins because when the understeer kicks in, you have to be aware of that one. If you corner in late, you're gonna be hitting the outer wall. And yes, Soja Bobby, I see you have a question. I shall answer it on the next long straightaway. But fire away. When will the tournament start? As soon as we cover the M8 and the F8. For the M8 and the F8 grip run, I will only do one run of each. And once that's done, we shall officially begin the tournament. Tournament rules will be as follows. So if Yuigao and Dearest Me and Trust and Leon the Drift Pro are all watching right now, preparing, as I overshot the corner there, while they're preparing, the only rules are ECU 0 and no Prime Legendaries. I should not have answered the question there, honestly, because it's costing me my time. That could have been a much easy corner for me to ride the inner wall on. But this should pose a bit of a challenge. A big penalty such as that, can I recover only doing a grip run with the F-Type? I would say it is possible. As long as my corner lines are much better than they are against Folky. But we've already beaten Folky's run by a mere second. Okay, that was a better executed corner throughout the carousel where we kept our line. So here I need to do better deceleration and narrow down the gap. Gear 3 would be my highest gear, so I have to take note. I cannot go down to gear 2 or I'm gonna lose out on even more momentum. So in terms of aggressiveness, the F-Type Project 7 grip requires an even more aggressive race line where you have to literally get up close and personal to the inner wall without touching. So the big hit that he did earlier before the second carousel is my only advantage. Oh, that was actually good. That was a good alternate run throughout the second carousel. So in this last section, we're honestly fairly equal. I think we both cap at the same time. That's why it's negating any advantage I have against him. But again, whether we beat it again or not, we already cleared the 6 minutes 20 against Folky. Getting a little hot here, but okay, 6 minutes 22. We're averaging 6 minutes 20, 6 minutes 21. And I do believe our earlier run fared much better despite the hits. But now it's time for us to move on into Extreme Class. Among free-to-play vehicles for Extreme Class, 2 cars are ideal if you want to practice on gripping early game. The first car that I recommend would be the Ferrari F8 Tributo. My tuning settings are as follows. It's a 1-2-1-3-2. I'm pretty sure in electricity 1, it keeps it balanced. Because you put it to electricity 2, there is a chance for you to oversteer. Do not go electricity 3 unless you want to have a bad time. So I'll do it first with the M8, the F8, and then we'll go to the F8. We cannot beat either against the Jesko. But I will make one bonus run after I do the M8 run. I'll say what it is in a bit, and then we'll officially start the exhibition match between RFF Super Leo, Endear, and Yuigao. So to those who also just came in onto the live stream, welcome to the 4th Masterclass session of Racing Master SEA, hosted by yours truly, Miyogi, where in tonight's lesson, we are tackling grip driving. We have done the drift classes for Standard, Sports, and Extreme on the previous 3 streams. Now we're doing grip driving on the dry using free-to-play accessible cars that can be used by anyone. Right now, we are already on the Extreme class. We've already cleared Sports and Standard. I am using the Ferrari F8 Tributo. If you are an early gamer, you can unlock the Ferrari F8 by simply playing the game up to the 14th day. And on the 14th day is when you unlock the Ferrari F8. you get a free ECU 0 copy by just merely logging in. So obviously, it stands no chance against the Jesko. But is it a bad grip car? I would say no. It actually performs quite decent. Though, unlike the M8, the F8 suffers from more understeer than it's supposed to. Then again, this is a supercar, not a hypercar. So this car requires more braking if you want to loyally stick to a grip line. So in tackling the Nordschleife with the F8, if you remember how we did earlier with the F-Type, you are to treat it the same way. More deceleration than necessary. The brakes on this thing are just decent at best. Yeah, the M8 is a literal track car. The downside of that one, because of all that downforce, it cannot actually hit an ideal top speed, unlike the Ferrari F8. And when you get to the final section, you would honestly need that additional top speed. The M8 can clock into almost 300 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, the F8 can clock into almost 300 kilometers per hour, while the M8, the BMW, can only do at best a little above 280. So here, be careful when entering the carousel with the F8. Expect the understeer, so you really have to corner early. So the best gear to tackle most corners in the F8 Tributo is gear 3. So do make a mental note of that. And again, watch out for the understeer. The M8 and the F8 are literal polar opposites. You have one that has better handling but low top end speed. Meanwhile, the F8 has better top end speed but really suffers so much on understeer. Okay, you can see there will be chances if you ride the rumble strip too much, you can induce it to a drift. And that is what you really want to avoid when you're tackling the carousels. If you corner too early, incorrectly, you're just gonna oversteer and force the car to a sudden slide. That's what you want to avoid. Also, to answer Nefi TV's question, am I on the PC client? Is it native or is it on top of an emulator? This is definitely on top of an emulator, as this is the official PC client of Racing Master. Each server, JP, Taiwan, CEN, SEA, LATAM, and Global, they all have their dedicated PC clients. I'm pretty sure at this point none of them use an emulator such as BlueStacks or Nox. Okay, I do believe this one was inferior to our last run. The better run I've done with full focus was on 611. I do believe. Let me check here. Yeah, 6:11. So I was 6 seconds off. Now we'll do it with the BMW M8, then the bonus time attack, and then the official exhibition match between our top 3 champions from previous streams. So this is my setup for the BMW M8. 2, 3, 1, 3, 2. Now, y'all will be surprised. Isn't this a drift setup? And to that, I would say yes. But it also makes a good counterpoint that the M8's capacity is capable for both grip and drift. So let us now actually beat our 6 minutes 11 and 6 minutes 17. Let's see if it is possible with the M8. Do note that my M8 and F8 are both at ECU 4. So no special tricks here. We're going to be tackling the course the same way as we did with the F8. With a general drift setup. So you can see the M8 has oversteer. The F8 has understeer. So it can corner much earlier, much better. So you gotta delay your corners if you're switching between the F8 to the M8. The M8 was free to everyone if they logged in. I believe it was August of last year? Or one of the months? Or was it September of any of the specific months last year where everyone was gifted a free BMW M8. So if you have claimed it, then you can also try a grip run. People were saying the M8 was a good grip car at Season 0, and they are not wrong. Also, if you've noticed, the brakes on the M8 are just as strong as the BMW M2. So again, I'm just going to be doing a single run because I want to switch over to the bonus time attack where I would showcase the Extreme Class's God of Grip and take down Fate Hurts run, and then we would be doing the exhibition match. Exhibition match will be a 3-way between our top 3 champions. The champion of sports class, we have RFF Super Leo. The champion of extreme class, we have Endearis Me. And the champion of yesterday's standard class race, Yui Gao Hoshi. So if you ask me as an F2P player, which is much more comfortable to try on grip, hands down, it would definitely be the BMW M8. But if you missed out on the free M8 session, or you just started recently, the Ferrari F8 Tributo is a good beginner's grip car. You will suffer understeer, but that is a principle that you must understand, as there will be other cars that can grip but would also suffer immense understeer. And I am looking at you, Lamborghini Veneno. So with the M8 as well, because its ride height is relatively low, it can hop its way up and or past the rumble strips. So you really got to be careful with cornering into those. You are better off entering the grass and riding the rumble strip in the middle than just simply riding into the rumble strip, causing half of your car to go airborne. Here you can do flat out, but I believe I hesitated, hence the brake. Okay, so Fate Hurts is still leading way ahead, but our challenge here is how to tackle the carousel. So I entered the carousel too early, hence my car suddenly jumping to the outside. Again, through the carousel should be an out, out, in. Also, I just remembered there is an additional rule that I will be setting for our finalists. On top of ECU 0 and no Prime Legendaries, there is one additional rule that I would be mentioning later. But we are gonna be mentioning that when we get to the exhibition match. Okay, we're now entering the second to the last section of the Nordschleife, this high-speed section. So to summarize the attributes of a good grip car or grip driving overall, your two tools are ideal braking and the ability or the understanding of when to disengage the throttle. Those two methods are your best ways on grip driving to know when to do such to keep your speeds up against the drift competition. So I would say this run with the F8 is a much safer run than usual. I don't think I'm gonna hit my 601. I don't think I'm gonna pass my 601 either. And as you can see, the top speed of the M8 is much lower than the F8 because of its downforce. We're still able to beat the F8, the F8's better time, but I would also say that was 9 seconds behind the original lap time we've done with the M8, which is 6:02. But okay, to quicken the pace here, I'm already going to switch over to our exhibition race. And not yet our exhibition race. One last, the bonus grip. This one car, Venino says grip was better, but I would say this is, in SCA, this is the undisputed grip champion. The Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR Strassen version. Yes, sure, the performance index may not say as much, nor would its stats. But I would say it does grip the best out of everyone in the roster. So I'll do one showcase. It may not have the best launch, but once it gets going, you know it's gonna get going. As if we look at the cornering speed and the traction, the CLK just ruins it. So if you're worried with deceleration mid-corner, afraid of commitment, the CLK, you can just go flat out. So even with a minor hiccup such as that, you can keep your momentum as high as you can. Look at us, we're just within striking distance of the Jesko. So even if I'm doing cornering and braking, which extends my braking distance, I'm still able to stay within gap of the Jesko, unlike the F8 and unlike the M8. A little bit of a mishap because I did understeer through the second S-curve. But I'm pretty sure the rest of the sections here would say otherwise for the CLK. Corner exits with the grip CLK are far better than any drift car as of present. And more so on braking distance when you brake in a straight line. The stability is also off the charts. So even with a minor wall tap such as that, I'm still able to be within under 5-second gap against the Jesko. And with braking on a straight road, I do also have the benefit of a shorter braking distance. And when we go past the acceleration cap of the CLK, we actually get even more acceleration beyond the cap. Even if the gap was minor, I'm pretty sure I can get close. Or not. There, you see, that's the out-in approach where it is much better to do in almost any car going through the carousel. Also, from you can see from the gap, we were almost 5 seconds earlier, and now we are just 2 seconds behind the Jesko on this technical section, showing the dominance of the CLK when we get to section 3. The sustained top speed through corners in the CLK is just insane. This also justifies why Endear Is Me was able to capitalize with the CLK during our exhibition match. Now, unless that Jesko is on an ECU upgrade, there's a minor chance that the CLK can catch up on this long straight. There you go. Once we get to 280, suddenly the acceleration is spiking. And we're initially capping out on 311, 312. So the 20-second gap earlier got mitigated to merely just 5 minutes something on this last section. But okay, I will do one last run, but I want to give this as an opportunity to Endear Is Me, RF Trust and Leon the Drift Pro, and Yuiga Hoshi to make their final preparations. Unlike the previous races that we have done, there is no warm-up round. Round 1, we're going to be doing it up until round 6. So we're going to be following Legendary Cup rules. So I want Endear Is Me, Yuiga Hoshi, and RFF's Trust and Leon the Drift Pro to please get ready in a matter of minutes. I shall be creating the room as soon as I'm done with this round 2 of my grip workshop. So I do believe this is an ECU 2, Jesko. I did a practice run earlier, not as smooth, but I was able to beat his time, but I did not record the time because I was saving it for tonight's stream. Also do note, if you have skipped out on lesson 2, the Jesko is a prime legendary, but looking at the gap here against a CLK which has no prime passive, this is unheard of. Also, that was ideal to tackle at Gear 3. And we've done it much better than we did on the previous run on that section. We maximize the road, which we did not do earlier. And here, we gotta be consistent, because that one high-speed corner can actually help us gain closer. There, we're slowly gaining gap back. Gear 3 is most ideal for the CLK there. And remember, out, out, in ideally, but I missed my mark. So I have to recuperate this gap when we get to the chicanes. You can see we're now close to the Jesko. Just gotta commit. We gotta commit to the bid. So this is like Endear is me versus me again, but the roles are reversed. And no slipstream. Okay, there, we've done it. We've done the proper way to attack the carousel. The wall tap in, he drifted, so he's gonna lose the momentum. But here, this is where, if there was slipstream here, I would have already overtaken the Jesko. Will I lock the car classes and which car we can use for each race? Yes, I will. Don't worry, Endear. To make it easy for you guys to do your selections, I would do the manual car locking per class. And time in 5:44. We barely beat Fate Hurts' Jesko run. So is it really possible to beat a Prime Legendary? On certain conditions, I would say yes. Can you beat a Prime Legendary with a non-Prime Legendary vehicle? Definitely. So if we look at our time here, we've gained 1 rank. No, 2 ranks. We're now from 76. We've gone up to 74. We've basically did 1.05 seconds better than how we did with the Jesko. But now that we have that settled in, it is now time for us to actually prepare for the exhibition match. There will be no password for this. And for the sake of anyone who might accidentally join in, I would just leave these guys in as placeholders. Consider them traffic. And I shall be on the watch bench. So this is just to fill in the slots, just to make sure nobody else joins in. So as of this moment, we are now starting with the exhibition race. Parts 5, ECU 0. Let me get my notepad in as well. Super Leo. And here. Here we go. Alright, let me just prepare everything for everyone here. Yeah, don't worry, you go. We're waiting on you. I'm just setting up the room. Don't worry. Yeah, I could tell. He's restarting. That's why I'm not starting it off yet. So off-road is out. Extreme is out. Sports is out. We're sticking to standard. Prime Legendary vehicles are not allowed. So it's a very minor reduction on the car roster. And to make it a little bit harder, we'll disable ghosting. Okay, we'll confirm that. So we're just waiting for one more to join in. Everyone debuffed on PLDC. It's all playing to Super Leo's favor. He did his preparations off stream. We know what's going on. First session, we're gonna be doing it in the drive. So this was gonna be a little bit hard for... Because remember, we're gonna be playing track-wise. We're playing on Legendary Cup rules, which means this is 2 laps across the Nordschleife. So when I mention endurance, this is endurance. The connection in this country is a joke, yeah. Cheers, is this the alternate account of Yuigao? Because if it isn't, I might need to conduct some room setting changes. That's fine, it's fine. Okay, right now we are just waiting on Yuigao to join in. Okay, so this would be the additional rule I'm giving to our finalists Yuigao, RFF Super Leo, and Endear. ECU 0 to everyone. Maximum performance, so that's 25 out of 25. Parts level 5. No prime legendaries. But the master cars can be used. And lastly, round robin. When I mentioned round robin, if you used one vehicle on the first round and we do this on the next round, we do the same class, you cannot use that same vehicle. And the one who gets priority of unable to use that vehicle is the winner. So for example, Endear wins the standard class with an R32. Everyone cannot use the R32 on the second round of standard class. Alright, so Yuigao seems to be experiencing a bit of some disconnection issues. I hope it does get resolved. No passive cars also. I would say that is the one, honestly, the only passive car that we have. For example, we're going to be starting off with standard class, okay? The only passive cars that we have in is the Veneno, the MC20 Cielo, the R32 Nakazato, and the Gohojo NSX. So if anything, if either of you has both the MC20 and the NSX, we might see a one-make race happening, which is fine. But we can also note that cars like the Murcielago can combat the cars with passives. Yuga, you can actually leave the stream and join in straight to the game. Hopefully that connection does make it better. Alright, we're honestly experiencing a bit of some technical difficulties on Yuigao's end. Ooh, every startup is the same scenario. I'm looking on your image right now. Now we're just waiting on Yuigao. To those who just came in, just like to let you know the current status. We are actually starting our exhibition cup in a moment between our three champions. So if you could just bear with us, guys, a bit. We're troubleshooting it at the moment, privately in our server. So, in the spirit of fairness, both Endearisme and RFF Super Leo, Trust and Long the Drift Pro, are helping out Yuigao Hoshi into participating. Yeah, I can actually remove the bots. Keyaru, you can actually let me just remove the bot since you can spectate for the time being a 1-2 1-2 1-2. That's the password. So we're giving one last chance to Yuigao. Hopefully the recommended fix that Endear shared would help alongside RFF Super Leo. But since Keyaru is here, we're really maximizing our chances here for Yuigao. If ever Yuigao won't be able to participate in the three-way, since you are in, we're gonna be giving the exhibition match opportunity to you since you are our standard class runner-up. But we're prioritizing Yuigao currently for them to actually join in on the matchup, and hopefully his internet does cooperate. Yeah, that is the downside right now of a game such as Racing Master, where it requires an online connection, and not all online telcos, especially in the Philippines, are this stable. So, and hopefully, Yuigao, if ever, say, the connection really does not cooperate, if you are okay as well, Keyaru 909, our first runner-up, could represent you. So, wait a minute. I set the room settings. What the? Oh, did somebody just guessed it right? M Moon, if you are in the live stream, please join the spectators room. But if not, please leave. Yes, to reiterate for our combatants, round 1 would be in the dry of Nurburgring. Yeah, I know, Endear. I know. Probably someone from the live stream watching. Oh, that's you, Ami. Please stay on the spectator side for the time being. Okay, so we've received final confirmation that unfortunately Yuiga won't be able to compete in this Fatal 3-Way. So we are giving the floor to our first runner-up of our standard class competition. So Keyaru, please exit the spectators watch and join in with RFF Super Leo and Endear. You are going to be representing the standard class competition, and you are going to be representing Yuigao for this race. In case those who did not meet or watch yesterday's live stream, it was a very, very tight battle between Yuigao and Keyaru 909 for the winning post on the standard tournament last night. So Keyaru, please join in. Wait, hold on. There we go. Keyaru, please step in. Let me also mention that. And don't worry. This is originally for... we have a Discord server, by the way. And all our finalists are part of the Discord server. Coincidentally. So what I could actually give as a compensation to Keyaru is that if he manages to win, he would get 2 weekly passes. If he does not win on behalf of Yuigao, you can only get 1 weekly pass. And if, say, Keyaru wins, Yuigao, you will be receiving the Discord role of the Green Hell Conqueror. If it's not you who win, it goes to whoever between Super Leo or Endear. So if Keyaru wins, you win the title. So that way, everyone gets compensated here. So okay, so we got our competitors in. Again, these are the rules. 2 laps on the Nurburgring. We have 6 races. 2 per class. I randomize it the same way as in Masters in RM Cup. No prime legendaries, but cars with passives are allowable, such as the R32 Nakazato, Go Hojo NSX, the MC20 Cielo, and the Lamborghini Veneno. Also, whoever wins the match, everyone in round 2 of that same car class cannot use that vehicle. It would be locked off. So, I'll just be watching. We're going to be putting it on a dynamic replay for everyone. So, Super Leo and Deer, Keyaru, on behalf of Yuigao, we wish you the best and let us begin. Okay, so I'm pressing start. There we go. Okay, so Super Leo comes out with the R32 Initial D Edition. And Deer as well with the R32 Initial D Edition. So Keyaru, would you be joining the Guardrail Lovers Club? Oh! He's gonna be going with the full grip comp with the BMW M2. Redemption for yesterday's event. There you go, we're now beginning. Keyaru on pole, and Deer in second place, Super Leo on third. 2 laps on the Nordschleife. And they are off. By the way, as well, the additional rule I had is there is no ghosting. So it is a matter of knowing who of them would be able to maximize control. Also, everyone will be at ECU 0. So oddly enough, we do not have sound. Must be on the connection. Kind of weird. But anyway, yeah, the camera's kind of bugging out as well. So we're going to be stuck with chase cams. So I'm going to be jumping in between everyone. So Keyaru is slowly catching up to the likes of Super Leo and Endear, who happen to be chasing, bumping with each other. There is 0 ghosting, so it is a full contact race. So this is one aspect of Racing Master Racing that I have not tackled, where we can actually witness Oh, wait. Let me just switch up the cameras. We're really broke. The wide camera is broken for this multiplayer session, so we are kind of forced to watch it from a chase view of whoever we are focused in. It's kind of glad that NCS Soundtrack is sponsoring the music. So Endear is holding on to its lead. It is honestly a very tight race between the three of them. Keyaru is just right behind the R32s. The R32s on corner entry are losing out on speed, but both of them are gaining tons of momentum into the corner exits. And collisions are enabled, just to let everybody know who are watching. So what I recommend if you are in Keyaru's position is that you are to stay as close as possible to the likes of Endear and Super Leo up until section 3. Once you are past the carousel, that is where you could actually fight back. RFF Super Leo tries to overtake and is neck and neck against Endear. Super Leo takes the lead, and Endear already on the slipstream beyond 200 kilometers per hour, but just right behind in this long straightaway. Hopefully Keyaru can still make it in. Is there a possibility? There may not be a possibility for the R32s to peek in. They are both in engine 2. Just to note, but collisions are on, so this is going to be a This is going to be a bit of a pickle for the likes of Endear, who is behind, because he needs to overtake cleanly with the draft so that he can take the lead. But Super Leo is not having it. Soju Bobby, the room is, let me just copy it right now. There, hopefully you can also watch in. So they're already entering now the carousel. Keyaru having a bit of some trouble onto the corner entry. But if he could keep the momentum throughout the Nordschleife third section, he may have a chance on chasing back against Endear and Super Leo. Right now it is a strong matchup between Endear and Super Leo. Super Leo going a bit wide. Endear on the attack right behind. Still within slipstream range. And I really think our map is bugged. We won't have this issue if it's replay, but we are having issues as we are spectators. So since this is the dry, they are maximizing the entire map to their advantage. Keyaru slowly trying his way to try to keep up with the two Nakazato R32s. Watching what's going on right now. Endear still within the attack. RFF Super Leo holding strong to that lead. Keyaru though is within a big of a gap, but because of that impact earlier from RFF Super Leo, Endear is being pushed behind, reducing the gap between him and Keyaru. But Super Leo is really protecting his lead there. One last opportunity before he may be put at a disadvantage. Endear's chance here is that he should not hit the back of RFF Super Leo in the long straight. Now, if any of them try to grind on each other, it will be an advantageous to Keyaru, who is currently right now 6 seconds behind. And now we are on the slipstream now. Will Endear hit or will Endear overtake? Super Leo tries to overtake, and Endear with the brake block, making sure that Super Leo loses some momentum there. Endear with the maximum tune tactic of brake blocking. This would actually both play in his favor and also against RFF Super Leo. So it's just a matter of seeing how well can they block. we're noticing a Sonada moment happening between the two GTR 32s. And Keyaru slowly gaining on the two GTRs. And the last, but we're not done yet. This is just lap 1. They have one more lap to capitalize and either build gap or to just duke it out with each other. So crossing the start-finish gate into lap 2, Super Leo's R32 hits the outer wall, giving Endear a chance to overtake, and overtake he did. Meanwhile, Keyaru is still within attack range, and if he can capitalize on the high-speed sections, he can still catch up against the two GTRs. So it's a matter of mastery of the grip run. That would be his helping hand across sections 1, 2, and 3. If he manages to stay within slipstream, he should be good, as Endear understeers into the outer wall. And hopefully that would still put Keyaru within slipstream range. And looking at the speed, he possibly could. Now going to Endear, Endear does a bit of a minor drift. The gap between him and Super Leo is slowly widening. RF Super Leo having the advantage and the track mastery. The gap slowly building up between the two GTRs and the M2 right behind. All three vehicles are now outside of slipstream range. Now first corner would normally entail, would they be able to build gap further? Or would they get close to each other even further? Keyaru tries in with a smooth grip exit. Unfortunately, it's still not enough. Endear is already back on the attack with RF Super Leo. RF Super Leo trying to brake check Endear into that, preventing him from overtaking at all. They all do tremendously well through the shortcut section. Keyaru hits a bit of some wall there. Hopefully he would be okay. But going back here to the top 1 and top 2, Super Leo still holding on strong. Endear tries to find every opportunity to attack, making sure that when the GTR understeers, he actually tries to bite back. And RF Super Leo with the defense, pushing both GTRs into the wall. Nearly grazing the wall there. We're focused on Endear, who has both him and RF Super Leo on camera. So here's the dive bomb attack from Endear, and Endear tries his best, pushes RF Super Leo into the outside, regaining his lead. We switch back the camera to RF Super Leo, who is now in second place. Both GTRs are trying their best to build as much gap as possible. Now, do note, if ever any GTR wins, the GTR Initial D Edition cannot be used by everybody, which means Keyaru will have a fighting chance of using the M2 again on the next standard race. But Endear trying his best to be on the extreme defensive. RF Super Leo trying to capitalize every inside corner to the best that he could do, making sure he has the better racing line over Endear. And now they're already on the long straight of section 2. RF Super Leo in the slipstream, closing in on Endear. Endear having some map knowledge of the road awareness, tries to overtake, but RF Super Leo fails on his overtake and hits the outer wall. Endear anticipates that and still prevents the overtake, preserving his lead. Lap 1 earlier, as a recap for everyone, that RF Super Leo was leading, and now Endear is leading on lap 2. The gap is slowly decreasing between the M2 and the two GTRs. Some understeer there from RF Super Leo. A little bit of some overshooting on Keyaru's side. They enter once again to the carousel. Wangan Racing Master Tune. Two GTRs duking out like a pair of Uma Musumes, giving it their all according to Justin0241. What is this? Oguri Cap versus Michelle My Baby again from Cinderella Grey? Now both of them doing polar opposites of their approach. RF Super Leo doing an out-out-in with Endear doing an in-out-out, exiting the corner at the same pace with the same gap. Then RFF Super Leo closes in, tries to mitigate and minimize his drift angle against Endear, slowly gaining in. Endear goes wide, RFF Super Leo overtakes, pushes Endear into the outer wall, and RFF Leo regains his lead. With a 0.3 second gap, Endear tries to take his revenge against RFF Super Leo. Meanwhile, Keyaru is slowly trying his best to catch up to the two GTRs. Soju Mahabibili Hashire Hashire Uma Arsani. Oh my god, I can't believe I just sang that. Okay, going to the split time of 0.6 seconds of a gap. Endear still within slipstream range against RFF Super Leo. Take note, everybody is in ECU 0. RFF Super Leo anticipates the pass and blocks Endear. Will Endear be able to anticipate that? There's only 2 more corners before the long 2-kilometer straight. Who would be the one to secure the lead, and would RFF Leo give Endear a taste of his own medicine? RFF Leo Super goes wide, and Endear tries to pass, but unfortunately fails. Gap slowly widening as soon as we reach the entrance to the long straight. Now, Endear is within slipstream range. It is a long, wide 2-kilometer straight. Can he actually anticipate Super Leo? And Super Leo fails on the block. Endear passes. The gap just increased. The gap between Super Leo and Keyaru slowly decreases because of that one failed block. And Keyaru now in the slipstream, ready to overtake RFF Super Leo, but unfortunately hits him directly at the back. Is this a method of a bump draft? As the hit actually aids with Keyaru. And oh, did Keyaru just accidentally brake? Or was that RFF Super Leo doing a delayed brake check? Suddenly the gap widens to 10 seconds and RFF Super Leo tries to overtake Endear, pushes Endear to the wall, and now is in the lead. And the winner of round 1 is RFF Super Leo in the black GTR R32, with Endear placing second and Keyaru representing Uigao in third. Which was honestly weird of what happened there. I do believe Keyaru was trying to pass RFF Super Leo, and then suddenly Keyaru was pushed extremely further into the yeah, you didn't brake at that moment. That I was honestly surprised there as well, Keyaru. Keyaru, you can actually lead now. We can now move on to round 2. So that was an intense race between the two GTRs. But now we need to switch off to our next class, which is the sports class. The only vehicles that cannot be allowed here would be the Koenigsegg CCX and the Lamborghini Reventon. Normally, I would also be blocking the Go-Hojo NSX, but with the weakness that we have discovered during the first stream, we know that it is still fair game, as the NSX Go-Hojo edition has very weak slipstream and has a tendency to bug out on Gear 4 entering Gear 5. Meanwhile, the GTR Windsofrida may have one of the highest performance index cars in the sports class roster. However, it really has a low acceleration capacity beyond the cap. Meanwhile, the MC20 Cielo is highly dependent on braking to initiate its passive, but it is not actually helpful at all when we get to the long straights. So, to kick it up a notch, we are alternating between the wet and the dry. So, round 2 will be on the wet version of the Nurburgring. Mafio Asahina, please join us in the spectator room. 4 more people who are in the live stream can actually join in and watch as we now start on round 2. So by the way, Keyaru, when we get to the standard class, he may use the M2 again. Unfortunately for Super Leo and Endear, they could no longer use the R32 GTR. So this is good. Super Leo and Endear having the handling advantage. Meanwhile, a full balance, high high red drift capacity MP412C joins in on the fight. So MP412C driven by Kiaru, and the two Go Hojo NSXs for round 2. And now we have sound. Okay, and hopefully this would also mean... Oh, did I say we have sound? We no longer have sound. And we also no longer have a camera. Maybe this is the bug right now for spectator mode. I would have to report it over to the RM devs. Suddenly, we see some technical issues happening on Endear's NSX as Kiaru takes second place. RFF Super Leo now building gap. And take note, we are now on the cloudy wet section version of the Nordschleife. We no longer have the extended barriers. However, it also means all of our participants when taking shortcuts are now crippled by the speed penalties going through the grass. So RFF Super Leo building a tremendously huge lead of 2.5 seconds ahead of Kiaru and Endear, who are fighting neck and neck, eating on each other's slipstreams. Hopefully, they make sure they do not enter the grass while they do said slipstream. Kiaru with a higher top speed latency over Endear, who is just under 220, while Kiaru's at 233. They take the shortcut. Unfortunately, the penalty kicks in, but it is more than enough for Kiaru to overtake. But he overshots wide, and Endear takes second place back. Kiaru needs to stay within the NSX's slipstream, and they have to do so back-to-back if they want to catch up to Super Leo, who has a under 3-second lead in first place. Kiaru playing it safe, reducing a bit of that speed penalty. Meanwhile, Endear overshots into the speed penalty. Kiaru oversteers into the grass. That's a bad call. The gap now widens to 4 seconds. Endear tries his best to catch up. RFS Super Leo sitting pretty on first place and hits the inner wall while taking the shortcut. Unfortunately, his 4-second gap now got reduced back to 2 seconds. Endear also hitting a bit of some wall. Kiaru slowly, smoothly executes that one hairpin curve and chases after Endear's slipstream. Endear with the extreme understeer, letting Kiaru pass as Kiaru tries his best to chase after RFF Super Leo, who just went through the low speed section and also hitting wall. A lot of wall contact this time in the sports class. Kiaru slowly trying his best to chase after Super Leo, who is just 3 seconds behind. He may have the acceleration advantage, however, it would also mean that the cornering speeds of the NSXs are far more superior than the MP412C. Kiaru needs to make sure he has all 4 wheels planted into the ground or he gets magnetized into the penalty-ridden grass. Endear making sure he still stays relevant into the race, because the moment he breaks off on Kiaru's slipstream on 3rd place, Endear is done. Kiaru would still at least have the acceleration advantage as he gains more and more closer to RFS Super Leo as the gap tremendously reduces. RFS Super Leo only barely hitting 240. Meanwhile, Kiaru's at 260 in the 2nd section's long straight. Endear in the meantime is capitalizing on the slipstream and actually gains closer to Kiaru, hitting nearly 275 on that long straight. The 6-second gap now got reduced to 3 seconds, and Kiaru making sure Endear does not overtake. Kiaru now with the drift into the entrance of the carousel, chasing closer to RFF Super Leo. RFF Super Leo gets too close to the inside of the carousel. Endear using the entire map. And did we just see ghosting happen? Endear uses the entire map and overtakes Kiaru cleanly through the carousel, a move we did not anticipate. Then Super Leo going up to the hill climb section, slowly making his way to the technical section. Endear and Super Leo will probably have the advantage here, but will it be enough to make sure the MP412C stays behind? Because the MP412C has the wider gearbox and the higher acceleration cap limit. Kiaru boldly goes through the penalty-ridden grass, hoping to take a faster line, but unfortunately the penalty may be too severe. He needs to stay within range of Endear if they want any chance at all to redeem the last run's third place. Endear understeers into the outer wall. Endear tries to block, but note, brake blocking with speed penalties on the grass may be a very risky move as Keyaru overtakes, but the gap is slowly widening from 6. I'm not gonna say it. Going to 8 seconds. Endear tries to pass, but is unfortunately blocked again by Keyaru. So RFF Super Leo sitting pretty in first place as he enters into the second entrance of the second carousel. Keyaru slowly gaining on it. Meanwhile, Endear trying his best to stay close to the MP412C. Supercar of Japan against Supercar of Germany, of Great Britain. And now we enter the advantageous section of Keyaru, where we get to the 2-kilometer long straight. Will it be enough to mitigate Super Leo's 9-second gap? RFF Super Leo slowly hitting 264 at gear 5. Keyaru easily breaking that top speed, entering 280 into the long straight. The gap is massively decreasing. Endear could barely hold on to the slipstream and is losing out on top end speed as the gap between him and Keyaru just widens. Meanwhile, Keyaru slowly gains all that speed, going past 300 kilometers and slowly making sure he does not overshot the corner as they enter lap 2 with a 2-second gap against RFF Super Leo. RFF Super Leo enters through the shortcut. Keyaru does the same exact thing with the same exact racing line. Endear plays it safe, goes through the road, slowly trying to make sure to maximize the NSX's F1 spec V12. It's MasterClass passive. Hopefully, it actually gets him through on the first section. Meanwhile, Keyaru making sure he does not overshoot unlike in the first lap, making every second count just to negate the gap RFF Super Leo is making. A little bit of some oversteer right there, and making sure he stays on all fours. 7-second gap returns with Super Leo leading, and Deer trying his best to mitigate that 4-second gap against Keyaru. Super Leo is in the zone, though in a lower top speed against the MP412C, is cruising on first place. Meanwhile, Keyaru is now slowly decreasing the gap once again, making sure this time to stay within the road, as now he learned the shortcut will not help him anymore. Endear thinks of the same way and is using the NSX's higher top end corner speeds to get closer to Keyaru, but unfortunately as soon as Endear gets to the corner exit, Keyaru hits the higher acceleration cap, slowly building gap. Keyaru slowly going in, keeping things safe, going through the normal road, a bit on the shortcut there, does not overshoot it this time. Meanwhile, Endear does the same thing. The gap is still equal. Super Leo still flying on first place with a 7-second gap. I'm not gonna say the 2 digits. Keyaru now slowly reducing that gap from 7 back to 6. I'm still not gonna say it. The second section's top end speed area is where he can capitalize. Meanwhile, Endear is doing his best to stay within slipstream range, and he's fighting his way into keeping and making sure he stays within second place to keep his position. Okay, I'm just double checking here on the points. So on the first round, Super Leo gets 9 points for first place. Second place, Endear with 8 points, and Keyaru representing Yuigao in 7 points. Now, if Keyaru holds on to his second place lead, he gets to tie with Endear. But if he manages to do the impossible and catch up and pass Super Leo, that would bump him up to possibly a three-way tie entering into round 3. Chiaro now hitting 250 into the second section long straight, while Super Leo crawling into 244. Yeah, I have to apologize to chat. Due to a technical bug on custom rooms, we're not able to hear the engine sounds of our combatants from my end of the stream. Meanwhile, our combatants are actually performing absolutely astonishingly well with the car engine sounds and whatever hype music that they are going through. Into the carousel, a good average speed by Chiaro through the carousel, and Deer right behind Chiaro in slipstream range as they enter section 3. RFS Super Leo goes through the penalty grass, taking that shortcut. Will Chiaro do the same? Nope, Chiaro stays within the road. So does Endir, copying Chiaro's line, making sure he stays within the road to capitalize on his top speed. Super Leo, on the other hand, is using the grass as his own brakes as he goes through the section. He may be slower than others, but he gains it back on the second half of those chicanes. Chiaro goes through the grass, not expecting that. That actually gets him within striking distance of Endir, who just made contact, letting him know he is still within relevance, and overtakes Chiaro into the uphill section of section 3. It's now a really strong fight for second place. Now if Chiaro manages to stay and gets to the slipstream of Endir, he can have the fighting chance of tying it for second place. Endir slowly increasing the gap. Hopefully that would not be a problem to Chiaro. As long as he is still within under 3 seconds behind Endir, he can still fight it out in the 2-kilometer long straight. The gap reducing to 4 seconds as Super Leo cuts through the carousel by going through the grass. Probably a safe move there. Would Endir do the same? Endir overshots the carousel, going under 100 kilometers. We've tackled that in Why You Should, and the NSX performs poorly under 100 kilometers. That reduces the gap between him and Chiaro. Chiaro is now in slipstream striking distance, ready to pounce back on that white NSX. Now it is a matter of when he attacks and makes mind games against Endir. Endir tries his best to block and preserve his lead. Chiaro denied an overtake. Now Chiaro may have one more chance as he has a higher top speed cap of 247 versus Endir, who is just hitting 285, 286, probably from that bump draft earlier. RFS Super Leo about to clear the second lap. Endir tries his best to hold on. Chiaro chases after Endir's close. It is close for second place. Endir oversteers. It is close, but unfortunately not enough. Chiaro keeps third. Endir keeps second. Super Leo keeps first with an astoundingly huge gap. It was a tight race for second place. Hopefully, things would change once we get to Extreme Class. Yeah, unfortunately, Yuiga, I really apologize that the internet is fighting against you tonight. Wait, hold on. Let me just double check in. Oh, nothing was announced on the Discord yet. But anyway, the positions are unchanged. Alright, so comments before we move on to round 3, where we're gonna be back to the dry on Extreme Class. Tristan Leong advises, when you're in second and third, do not try to block because you will hurt the pace at the back. It is actually true. Rather than preserve, this is my similar opinion with Tristan Leong, the Drift Bro. When you're second or third place, do not try to defend your position. Instead, cooperate in order to fight back against first place. Your aim together is to reduce the big gap, whichever distance first place sets. So let's keep that in mind once we get to Extreme Class, the hardest of the bunch. We're gonna turn off sports. And for Extreme, the vehicles not allowed would be the Koenigsegg Jesko, the Bugatti Divo, and the Ferrari LaFerrari. Okay, so among the vehicles that we can potentially see, we have the Hyundai Envision 74, although a single gear can actually match the Bugatti Chiron in outright acceleration. The Lamborghini Revuelto, the new basis for the Meta, is also acceleration-wise a Bugatti killer. Cento Dieci, a lot of people still use this alongside the Chiron, still relevant, especially the Chiron this late in the season. Valhalla and CLK are pronounced grip gods. They can possibly turn the tides here. SF90 Stradale, this is the Taiwan version. The Monza SP1, though suffers greatly in cornering, but relies so much on drifting, but can actually capitalize on a higher acceleration cap. The Acura NSX, if anybody actually gets this, is actually good throughout the technical sections with the best hyper launch in the game, bar none. However, it is suffering from a gearbox that is strictly taken from the likes of a sports car class car. The Koenigsegg's are a second pick. If they can minimize their drift angles and keep the accelerations high, they can win this. The McLaren P1, balanced as it can get, alongside the M8, another grip potential machine, the Veneno being the only passive machine in the bunch that can only be helpful on corners. But what can be said about straightaways? If anybody has any of those aforementioned cars that I have said, they may have the advantage here. So, and again, everyone would be running at ECU 0 at parts level 5. So without further ado, let us get to the dry version of the Nurburgring for Extreme class. So Endear in the Veneno, Super Leo in the Huayra, and Keyaru, what would Keyaru pick? No, we're doing parts based. Keyaru being bold enough with the Hellcat, really now? Flexing that superb rarity bull bar body kit. Can the Hellcat actually give its due justice against the Huayra and the Veneno? Two pronounced hypercars with one very hard muscle boy. Trustin, to answer your question, it is points based. I'm conducting points. First place gets 9 points, second place gets 8, third place gets 7 per race. And also, do note to everyone, collision is on these battles. So it's strategic blocking that would also spell out. And remember, this is the dry. They can maximize the track going through the grass. Hellcat's fighting chance would be the acceleration, but he needs to be in a long straight in order to do so. So the acceleration kicks in on the Hellcat. Hopefully the Hellcat would control it. And Deer win the Veneno, fighting off against the Season 3, I guess? Season 3 Huayra. Veneno being the latest on the roster. Meanwhile, Huayra is the best cornering machine. And Veneno already on the attack against the Huayra. The Huayra defends. No change in top speed whatsoever. They go both through the grass. Veneno tries to cut through. Super Leo, being on the defensive, keeps it in with the Huayra. Keyaru slowly gains the lead as the two duke it out. Remember, collisions are on, so whatever blocking or ramming that they do, it would cost them their speed. So Endear strictly taking a grip line. Meanwhile, Super Leo maximizing the cornering ability of the Huayra, slowly building gap. But remember, the acceleration of the Huayra is not as great as the Veneno. Meanwhile, surprisingly, Keyaru in the Hellcat is fighting strong, staying within range between the Veneno and the Huayra, who are both duking it out. Veneno understeers and hits wall. That is giving chance for Keyaru to slowly gain into the slipstream of the Veneno. But would it be enough? Super Leo going through the drifts as quickly as he could. And then, right through that hairpin, Smooth as silk, as how the Huayra is meant to do so. Endear in the Veneno doing just as fine. Neutral gap between all three of them, not on each other's slipstreams. Kiaru with a 2-second gap behind the Veneno, sees it still within striking distance. The Veneno needs to catch up to the Huayra if he needs any opportunity in fighting in this race. Slowly but surely doing a proper grip. Overshots because of the curb. Kiaru still within range. Now we are entering the second section's long straight. This would be the fighting chance for Kiaru. This would be a very disadvantageous moment for Super Leo, who is at 264. Meanwhile, Endear is at 285, slowly hitting 300 kilometers, gaining closer to the Huayra. Meanwhile, Kiaru is at 280, trying to reduce the 5-second gap that was built between him and the Veneno. Veneno slowly closing in on Super Leo, hits the wall suddenly on that high-speed chicane, making sure he still stays stable. Veneno closes in with a profound drift on, locked on the inside. Kiaru still within that range. Suddenly we see here that Endear takes poor Leon through the carousel, but so did RFF Super Leo, and the gap is still close between the two of them. Meanwhile, Kiaru is sitting on third place with a 4.3 second gap and decreasing. Endear with a big push, pushing away the Huayra. Super Leo hits wall and loses all that momentum. The gap widens between the Huayra and the Veneno. Meanwhile, Kiaru drifting his way, making sure that he maximizes the top speed, reducing the drift angle in the heavy R's Hellcat. Super Leo trying his best to reduce his drifts, while the Endear using a grip run, capitalizing from today's lesson, making sure that the Huayra actually still stays behind him. Now, the only way for Endear to guarantee his win is once they get into the long 2-kilometer straight, he should at least have a 2-second gap between him and the Huayra. Unfortunately, Super Leo is just right behind the Veneno. Meanwhile, Kiaru doing his best to catch up with an 8-second gap. That heavy body of the Hellcat is doing no favors whatsoever. Meanwhile, Arva Super Leo with a wild overtake overtakes Endear into the second carousel. Endear with a nearly perfect carousel pass. Unfortunately, he overshot and lost some acceleration there, but I do believe this may be calculated as he enters into the 2-kilometer straight with a 0.5 second gap behind RFF Super Leo, maximizing that V12, ensuring he tricks RFF Super Leo into thinking he can do a potential brake block, making sure he stays right behind the range. Meanwhile, Kiaru at already 310 kilometers per hour, while Endear and Super Leo are locked within under 300 kilometers. Kiaru is already at 340, almost redlining to 350. Super Leo at 326, Endear also at 326 as they go through the high-speed chicane section. It's gonna be close. Endear breaks traction. I was about to say break wind. Endear breaks traction as he goes into the second lap, again behind RFF Super Leo, who leads with a 1.5 second gap. Endear changing tactics, making the Veneno drift through most of the first corner. Meanwhile, Kiaru, who built a staggering 350 km per hour gap, tries his best to reduce the 8-second gap down to 4 seconds. Meanwhile, Endear slowly goes through every grass shortcut patch that he could just to reduce the gap against RFF Super Leo's corner specialist Huayra. The Huayra not be taking any prisoners. You can see the active aero happening on the front and the back. He has full control over that Huayra. Now Endear already in the slipstream range. Endear tries to pass, unfortunately gets blocked off by the Huayra, gaining a little bit more speed. Now, overshots the corner. Endear tries to attack on the inside. Endear tries to pass on the inside as he goes through the corner alongside RFF Super Leo. The Huayra and the Veneno are neck and neck. Meanwhile, Keyaru is just cruising there, showing off those electronic fans right at the back of that Challenger Hellcat. So hopefully we see an upset later, but right now, Endear is losing traction, loses momentum as Super Leo rebuilds gap as they enter to the second section. But the acceleration of that Veneno is nothing to scoff off as it's closing in on the Huayra, who has a low RPM acceleration through. And then they both drift through that hard hairpin as they enter into the deep forest section of the Nurburgring. In through the S-curves, Huayra goes wide, Veneno with a proper grip run, slightly kissing the inner wall. Takes a drift into that slow hairpin section as they go down the downhill. Super Leo's Huayra still holding on to the lead with 1.5 seconds. Veneno trying its best to mitigate that gap as best as it could. Unfortunately, the gap was not enough as a second corner approaches in. Takes a grip run into the uphill. The gap still within 1.8 seconds but slowly reducing. Endear may have a chance once they enter to the second section. Drifts into the high hairpin. Super Leo maximizes the track width by going through the grass, and then they enter the high-speed section course once again on lap 2. The Veneno enters into the slipstream and is finally gaining some ground against the Huayra. Now, if the Huayra blocks or if the Huayra would actually tend to overtake, unfortunately for Super Leo, he fails the block and Endear passes smoothly, retaking the lead into the second half of the long straight. Misses the mark, but unfortunately for Super Leo, gets blocked in. The gap going to 0.14, 0.15 seconds as they make their way into the carousel. Meanwhile, Keyaru still sitting pretty on third, gets into a 10-second lead. Endear with the aggressive block against Super Leo, denying him of any inner lane advantage into that corner section. Endear understeers into the carousel. Super Leo tries to overtake. Endear holds off once again on his lead, not giving Super Leo a chance. This is probably Endear's redemption arc for first place. Endear's Veneno ruining the corner entry racing line off the Huayra. Unfortunately, that can still be said the same on the second half of that chicane. Super Leo retakes the lead. Endear now back in second place as they fight it off on the third section, the technical part of the Nordschleife. They both go through the grass slowly, but the Veneno still gains ground despite being the heavier one, with the downforce passive aiding him through the technical section, slowly reducing the gap on a place where the Huayra was meant to dominate. Still fighting it out within the same slipstream section, the Veneno is now fighting its way into the slipstream of the Veneno. The gap between Endear and Keyaru looks like Keyaru's already sitting pretty just content in third place. Endear tries to overtake but gets denied by the Huayra of Super Leo. They enter into nearly the entrance of the second carousel. Endear hits wall but fortunately does not get any wall penalties. They enter the carousel. Endear does it better than the Huayra, neutralizing with the acceleration on the exit. Super Leo, a bit of a drift into the first half of that corner section, goes a bit wide. Endear tries to overtake. Both of them hit wall. Unfortunately, that may be it unless Endear's acceleration pushes him further beyond the acceleration of the Huayra, which is currently right now at 284. Endear just hitting 284. Meanwhile, Super Leo at 298, 299, locked down at 300. Meanwhile, Endear hitting 315, 320. Will this be enough for him to actually catch up to the Huayra though? 333, 336, going down to 335. The only way now is if he could overtake at the last moment. Endear hits wall. Unfortunately, that secures the gap and the lead for RFF Super Leo, still securing first place in round 3. No changes so far on the positioning. but maybe there may be an upset on round 4 to 6. So with that said, the Huayra gets the ban hammer, and the Huayra cannot be used for round 6. So the following cars will be banned. For standard class, the R32 Initial D edition can no longer be used. However, Kiaru, who was in the M2, can still use the M2. NSX Go Hojo, if he wants to use the MP412C, Kiaru can still use it. The Go Hojos of Endear and the NSX of Endear and Super Leo cannot be used. The Pagani Huayra winning the match can no longer be used. So let me just set the map before I answer Super Leo's query. The one who wins the most races wins. Technically, the one who wins the most points. So there can still be an upset in rounds 4 to 6. So let us go back now to standard. The R32 joins the ban. Alongside, where's the FD? There we go. Don't want to keep the mistake of letting the FD and the damn Supra join in the fight. So now officially, there are no passive cars left in standard. The R32 was the lone one, alongside the prime legendaries. Sherry Swiss, can I get this game free? Yes, you can. You just have to Google up Racing Master. Now there are multiple servers. The Taiwan-China server can only be accessed with the Chinese language. The SEA server, which is available in English. The Japanese server in Japanese. LATAM in, I believe it's Espanol, or was it in Mexican? And the North American, aka global server, quote unquote, also in English. So from 40 cars available, we're only now down to 39. And now we are back in the wet of the Nurburgring. We're now entering race 4. If Endear and or Yuigao manages to upset Super Leo, this is their last chance for each class for rounds 4 to 6. For round 4, Super Leo joins in with the Diablo SV, Endear with the GR86, Kiaru sticking to his guns with the BMW M2. Now, with Kiaru with the warm-up, can he now fight it off against similar cars with no passives? Or would it be Endear's moment to finally get the lead be against Super Leo? Or will Super Leo pull a Katana Choseko and still retain his lead? Now, the Diablo with the worst launch gives way for the GR86 to pass. Unfortunately for Kiaru, that actually cost him the launch as he hits the rear of the Diablo. The Diablo and the GR86 fighting it off on first and second place, close with each other. The GR86 has the better gearbox. The Diablo may have the better cornering as far as stats are concerned, but it has the widest gearbox among the three. Meanwhile, Kiaru, oops, having gotten some trouble there, suddenly resetting. Is Kiaru okay? We're seeing a bit of some flashes on the end of Super Leo's side in the Diablo, but Endear can easily recover anything that the Diablo gives him and slowly gains the pass. Unfortunately, it was too slow. The Diablo was able to secure the lead, but that also puts Endear back into the slipstream. This may be his winning run. Now, it's strategic now for Endear to find out when he is going to overtake. The only advantage that Super Leo has is map awareness. Now, if he exits a corner a bit slower or he does not have a higher enough top speed, Endear can instantly overtake. Meanwhile, Yuigao also, Kiaru, representing Yuigao, just exited the high-speed corner, tries his best to catch up. Hopefully he recovers from that crash earlier and does a grip run throughout the remainder of the race so that he can catch up. Endear right behind the Diablo's back, pushing the Diablo away more into the penalty grass. The advantage that Endear has that he will be consistently right behind the Diablo. The question is, will he be able to pass the Diablo? Only time will tell. Alright, let me also just change the music because we've been stuck with NCS for too long. Let's actually bring back some Wuthering Waves music. Technical section comes in, and this would be Endear's moment as Super Leo takes it a bit slower, but he positions his car perfectly well, preventing and ruining Endear's racing line onto the slow hairpin section. Meanwhile, Keyaru gaining his momentum, slowly recovering, and is now in the attack just right behind Endear's GR86. Now, this would be the opportune time if ever Keyaru gets too close for Keyaru and Endear to 2v1 Super Leo into making sure that he gets down to third place. If he goes down to third place, this would be an intense race for Super Leo because that would reduce his points advantage from the previous runs. Endear now in the slipstream, but Keyaru slowly gaining in 223. Endear within slipstream range, but maybe, just maybe, capping out. Making sure he does not get overtaken. Super Leo makes sure that he is within the racing line of Endear, preventing any potential or possible overtakes. Keyaru, on the other hand, is slowly catching up to the top two. They enter in. Endear tries to push, but the Diablo is just too heavy to be pushed away. Endear with a bold enough attack and tries to go through the castle, but it is a too slow of attack. Meanwhile, Keyaru stays within the road, overtakes Endear, who overshot it through the carousel. It is now Keyaru's time to shine. Can Keyaru now recover all the losses he had on round 1 and destroy the Diablo and secure his lead with a grip-focused M2? Super Leo trying his best to drift it through. Though from what we can see here, Super Leo may be braking more than anticipated. Meanwhile, Endear braking less, and Keyaru with throttle control being in a grip run on M2. Both Endear and Keyaru seems to be having some troubles on that midsection. Keyaru still keeping strong. Hopefully he is still within slipstream distance. Endear staying too long in the grass, losing even more momentum than intended. Super Leo, on the other hand, uses the grass as his braking point. Keyaru still stays within the grass and tries his best to chase after the Diablo slipstream. Meanwhile, Endear falling far back behind. Hopefully he would get his chance to overtake and possibly stay within slipstream range. He is 2.5 seconds behind Keyaru's M2. Meanwhile, Keyaru in the M2 is within 2 seconds, slowly trying to chase after Super Leo's Diablo. A smooth corner into that as they both enter to the carousel. A bit of some internet lag there, but nothing to scoff at. Keyaru going through normally. He perfects through the second carousel, instantly recovering that lost gap, and is now within striking distance of the slipstream of the Diablo. Meanwhile, Endear taking a drift into entering to the 2-kilometer long straight. Hopefully the GR86 has enough power to carry through. Meanwhile, Keyaru and Super Leo fighting their way on first. Keyaru hopefully tries his best to time his overtake properly. He has enough of a gear gap between the red line. He just has to overtake smoothly and make sure to trick Super Leo into a feint. Super Leo currently right now is on 250 flat. Keyaru is a 240 but recovers all that with slipstream. Suddenly now hitting 260 into the downhill. 257 slowly for the Diablo. Keyaru suddenly cuts through the grass. Endear still chasing after the two of them. Endear with a bit of some love taps in the inside. Nearly loses control but recovers. Keyaru nearly overshots the corner. Unfortunately, that was too much brake on his end. Endear overtakes. Endear stays within the road. Keyaru goes through the grass, increasing the gap once again against the heavyweight Lamborghini Diablo. Lamborghini Diablo barely hanging on to first place as Endear is back onto the attack. Now, Endear's opportune moment here is that he just needs that one corner overtake or push the Diablo into the grass penalty in order to steal first place from the Lamborghini. Oh my god, Ragnarok ad. I am so sorry that interrupted the soundtrack at the best moment. Endear with a perfectly executed corner on that very high speed section of section 1. Keyaru suddenly having problems. Meanwhile, Endear gaining against the Diablo, who's barely struggling on gear 4. Endear unfortunately goes through the grass. Why would he do that? The Diablo cuts through the grass. Endear stays on the road, aiming for a better corner exit speed. 150. They equally exit through that section. Unfortunately for Super Leo, Endear is having 220 of a km/h gap. With a smooth overtake, finally overtakes Super Leo right on time with the chorus. But Super Leo tries to go through the shortcut using the grass as the brakes and recovers his lead. Keyaru slowly trying his best to catch up. Meanwhile, Endear and Super Leo fighting it out. They both go through the grass. This may be Endear's moment. He goes in, survives the assault from the Diablo, blocks the Diablo. Now if he can just hold on to his lead, he can actually turn the tides. And if he does it for 2 more rounds, we may have a tiebreaker run. The Diablo overtakes once again, Endear making sure that he plans his overtakes correctly. What he wants to do is he needs to have a clean overtake, copy what RFF Super Leo is doing so that he can secure first place at least right before the 2 km long straight. Note that he cannot push away the Diablo. The only thing he can do is if they're both in the grass and the Diablo's on the inside, he needs to make sure the Diablo stays on the grass. How he could do so is what we need to find out. Keyaru now biting back within slipstream range of the GR86 as the M2 closes in on the two who are duking it out for first place. Endear slowly in the over. You know what? Let's actually go back to the vocal version of this track. Alright. Because as much as I like the instrumental version of Heart of Laharoy, we need to keep the hype up. Because there was some dying moments. So Endear and Super Leo now in the section 2 long straight. Super Leo with a drift, losing a bit of some speed, but blocks Endear to ensure he protects his lead. Meanwhile, Keyaru now in slipstream range of the two of them is now catching up as they enter into the carousel. Super Leo fails a block and overtakes Endear, overtakes both of them and tries to secure his lead. Super Leo tries his best but fails. The dominance of the grip performance of the M2 shows itself as Super Leo tries to go through the carousel, unfortunately goes too wide. Endear and Keyaru preserves their lead, but using actually that as a feint, Super Leo overtakes them all once again. Keyaru fighting, biting back while in second place. Meanwhile, Endear, who overshot through the carousel, has one final chance in this final section. Kiaru now slowly gaining on Super Leo. This may be his redemption arc for round 1. Now, he just needs to either keep a good racing line or tries to push Super Leo as best as he could to the wall, if that is even remotely possible. That accident by Kiaru now costs him and puts Endear in slipstream distance. Now, if he could just slowly gain closer to Super Leo and Kiaru, he can still have an opportunity to secure first place. Kiaru losing control on that uphill section, Endear capitalizing on that one. He now just needs to have a smooth run on the final section, touch grass less, and he'd be able to catch up to the slipstream before the 2-kilometer long straight. Oh, suddenly, surprise Kiaru from behind! Slowly, grinding right next to the GR86. Too much there on the braking. Unfortunately, he had to slow down a lot to restabilize. Endear almost losing control in the carousel. He just needs that one last push. He has the high gear RPM advantage, the high gear horsepower advantage over Super Leo, who clears off the final corner with a bit of a slower top end speed. Endear chasing after that Diablo with 220, barely hitting 220 on the Diablo. Endear as a 240, would it be enough? They're hitting the uphill, they're both all losing speed. Everyone is now stuck at 250. Unfortunately for Super Leo, Endear gets 250 earlier. Now the downhill is up. Can Super Leo preserve his post? Endear's catching up. Endear is closing in. One last attempt of a dive bomb. If he could just cover it, he can reduce the gap right here. Super Leo takes the 4th consecutive win of the night. At least this time, Endear and Kiaru finally finish off with a bit of some exhibition donut runs at the finish. Good on to everyone. Now, is it possible still for Super Leo to lose his lead? I would honestly say yes. If he fails to secure his lead on round 5 and round 6, there is a chance that Endear can make a big upset. So, okay, we shall now switch over to the dry version of the Nordschleife, and we shall now switch over to sports class. And the additional banned vehicle in the sports class is the NSX Go Hojo Initial D Edition car. That no longer can be used. Alongside the Lamborghini Reventon, the Koenigsegg CCX. Every other car in the lineup can be used except for the NSX, the CCX, and the Reventon. Alright, let's have Kiaru please enable if you are ready. Remember, your car choices would really matter here. You have been here 4 times already in dry and wet. So you have a perfect understanding of the Nordschleife to our 3 participants. Round 5 of 6. Super Leo being bold enough with the Alfa Romeo 4C Spider, Endear with the Mercedes-Benz SL63, known to have the less amount of acceleration loss post-cap, and Kiaru with a balance pick, a Porsche 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. So if you are still within this live stream, don't forget to leave a like if this is your first time. Subscribe if you haven't, and please do share this with your other friends who also play Racing Master. Oh wait, we got a sudden car change at the last minute. Endear joked us all from the SL63 and switched last minute to the McLaren MP412C. The sudden change. Maxim learning from what he discovered from Kiaru's run and uses the MP412C. Super Leo may be at a disadvantage here, knowing that the 4C has the lowest acceleration cap penalty, has the lowest acceleration cap recovery, and the weakest slipstream gain. A bit of a messy run there on the 4C with Super Leo. It is close between him and Chiaro. Meanwhile, Endear, this time is the Flying Dutchman in the British supercar of the Millennium era. The MP412C of McLaren. The entry-level McLaren. Top speed-wise, Endear's not having it. He is at 250. Meanwhile, Super Leo struggling to have a high top speed. Barely just blocking Chiaro, who is also at 250. They're in the dry. They have the chance to maximize the entire map. Super Leo's only advantage is his high cornering speed. So Super Leo's strategy is that he needs to make sure he gets to the lead before the final long straight. But Chiaro is greeting him from behind, letting him know that Super Leo's era is over. With the 911 Cabriolet having a much more balance in all handling, top speed, and acceleration, is the one with a fighting chance against the MP412C. But Super Leo's not having it, clears the section much faster than the 911, and tries his best to chase after the MP412C into the medium speed section. Super Leo in the second section, this may be his advantageous point, but hits wall on the last moment. Though he also hit wall, Endear I mean, Super Leo lost more than just a wall penalty there. He also lost some stability. Meanwhile, Chiaro trying his best. He is trying to do a bit of a green drift run. Hopefully that would not play against his favor as the gap is widening between him and the 4C. Meanwhile, the 4C barely hanging on against the McLaren. Endear having a safe enough of a gap up into the uphill section of Section 2 as they make their way midway through Section 2 of the North Stripe into the Deep Forest section. The final corner where Super Leo can capitalize, unfortunately, is not enough as Endear uses this moment to build the biggest gap he could make against RFF Super Leo. Meanwhile, Chiaro, this would be his opportune moment to gain on the 4C and gain on that slipstream at the opportune moment. Now, would it be on the decision of Super Leo? Would he coordinate? Would he collaborate with Chiaro? Or would he go on the defensive and safely secure his second place position? Meanwhile, Endear building bigger of a bigger gap against the 4C and the 911. Oh, we're having some technical issues suddenly on Chiaro's side. Suddenly a full stop. Not sure if that was on the technical aspect of RM or on the network. Mistaking it for an overtake against Super Leo. Section 3, Super Leo needs to capitalize if he really wants to recover his post as the MP412C gap is slowly decreasing. Endear needs to ensure a clean run and a fast pace if he wants to keep his lead. Chiaro, on the meantime, is having a bit of some laggy issues, but hopefully he could recover. The gap is slowly reducing between Super Leo and the Super Leo's 4C and the MP412C. The McLaren 12C in the defensive. Super Leo tries to hesitate on that one grassy section. They drift through it. Super Leo has the better corner exit speed and the cornering speed. Unfortunately, it's not enough as the MP412C anticipates that pass and blocks it at the corner exit. Super Leo suddenly hitting wall there. The gap slowly widens once again from that wall hit penalty. The 911 slowly catching up from behind. Endear making sure he makes a stable run on the already unstable 12C. Super Leo trying his best to chase after that slipstream. They're now slowly into the high-speed section of the fourth section before the 2 kilometer straight. Would this be over for the 4C? Although this is just lap 1 of lap 2. And Deere suddenly losing stability, giving Leo the opportune chance to overtake. And Deere needs to have a proper corner through that carousel. A bit on a decent run, but I wouldn't say it's the ideal pace, as Super Leo does it way much better. Now Super Leo would have the harder time of blocking as he has the lowest acceleration cap out of all the 3. Kiaru's 911 still going strong. I do believe he is going to capitalize here on the long straight, where the gap would slowly dissipate. And Deere in the 12C making an easy pass. Surprisingly though, Super Leo tries his best on the slipstream. Unfortunately, he may be capping out as Endear is on a much higher slipstream despite a higher top speed despite Super Leo on the slipstream. Keyaru losing the opportune moment to slipstream and is dead set behind on 3rd place. Super Leo with a big bang onto the second to the last corner before they go to the start-finish gate. Entering lap 2, Endear protects his lead. Super Leo may be in a pickle. Keyaru doing his best to gain back against Super Leo and Endear. Meanwhile, Super Leo trying his best to do a straight line through corners to overestimate the 12C's capacity. He tries to get close so that he can get to the slipstream. Will it be enough? Looks like it is. He can now gain on the slipstream against Endear's 12C. Now if he can overshoot the corner without drifting, he can actually have an advantage. Unfortunately, he had to slow down there and the gap now widens between the 4C and the 12C. Keyaru's 911 slowly chasing after the little Alfa Romeo into the slipstream. Now hitting 270, hitting 280, easy overtake. Now he just needs to secure his lead and chase after the McLaren. Super Leo with a bit of a wide corner there. The 911 tries its best to outrun the Alfa Romeo. The 911 tries to chase after the 12C, but the 12C has a very strong secure gap. And now it's a matter of moments. Endear just needs to build even more gap. The more corners they go through, he needs to be on a much smoother pace to secure his first place. Super Leo tries to overtake Chiaro, but unfortunately denied by the 911's rear. So if Chiaro can just keep the 4C at bay, he gets a good second place finish. Chiaro is surprising us actually with a grip run on the 911. Would it be enough though to protect him against the 4C? Unfortunately not. The 4C goes through the inside much faster than the 911. 911 gets overtaken. 4C tries its best to chase after the 12C on the second section once again. A smooth, wild drift by the 12C as the 4C tries to go for it even smoother, reducing the gap to less than a second. The 12C tries to build a bigger gap, unfortunately met with a corner. The 4C capitalizes and negates that built gap. Chiaro, on the other hand, smoothly goes through a grip run there, chasing after the 12C. The 12C fighting its way slowly into the lead. One last corner before the big gap hits once again. The Endear needs to build a much bigger gap at this point on. The 12C now being chased by the 911 on the slipstream. Keyaru now hitting 240, instant 250. He just needs a smooth pass, and he gets the pass. Passing Super Leo in Section 2's long straight. Meanwhile, Endear building even a bigger of a gap. Slowly but surely, he tries to secure his position. If he can hold on to it until the end of the race, he has a fighting chance. Now, if Keyaru manages to keep Super Leo in 3rd place, unwillingly but telepathically coordinating with Endear, that should secure more points to both of them. The gap is neutral between the 12C and the 911. The 4C goes a bit on the medium, hits the rear of the 911, denied through the carousel, hits wall, the gap widens. Kiaru now building a bigger gap against the 4C, getting close to the slipstream of Endear's McLaren. Now, the only advantage that Super Leo has is that he needs to have a better corner exit speed against the two supercars right in front of him. 911 does a low angle or probably a grip run. Meanwhile, Endear's 12C going through it full send, making sure he stays within the lead. Going a bit too wide there, extended drift. Kiaru right behind the 12C. Super Leo negating all that gap earlier from the carousel. Can he actually catch up to the 911 and the McLaren? Let's wait and see. He gets denied pass and eats wall from Kiaru's 911. Kiaru and Endear fighting it out on first and second place. They're pretty close to each other's slipstreams. Now, would they coordinate or would they fight it out? And note, if they do fight it out, Super Leo is just right behind them. Super Leo pushing all those small horsepowers from that 4C. Unfortunately, loses some stability and loses the pace as Endear is giving Kiaru a bit of a slipstream. Now they should not be able to block on each other as they go through the carousel. Endear goes smoothly in the carousel. Super Leo with a bit of a jump. Kiaru still within slipstream range. All three are within each other's slipstream range as they enter the second lap's final 2 kilometers straight. Now, the only one who can actually fight it out on top speed is Kiaru and Endear. It is between the two of them. Kiaru smoothly in the lead. Endear denies it but fails. Kiaru is now leading against Endear. Endear eating on that slipstream. Super Leo barely hanging on. Unfortunately, is being denied all top speed whatsoever. Oh, what happened to Endear? Endear suddenly crashed and actually fell off pace. Kiaru is now leading, securing a 5-second lead. The 4C doing nothing at all just to get into second place. Meanwhile, Endear suddenly falling down to third place. Will it be enough for him to steal the lead off Super Leo, or would it be over for Endear? As the final second corner comes in, Super Leo holds on to second place. Endear overshoots it and lands on third. Our winner is Kiaru in the 911. A sudden upset. That was a sudden accident that happened on Endear's end. If he lagged and I tapped. Oh! Yeah, that does tend to happen with a full collision. That's why I highly suggest don't do bump drafting. And you're better off actually overtaking instead. Oh, your internet died. Really? Let me just double check. Yeah, it's an actual bug. But even without the slipstream, I do believe you can actually still... Okay, so unfortunately, looks like Kiaru would be out. He's already capped out and DNF. So that would actually be a 0 on the final round. Everyone's internet is dying. Probably. You know, I would like to get the opinion of Truston and Endear. Would you be willing to settle for a 1v1 for the final race? Would you be willing to settle for a 1v1 on the final race? Or would you want the second runner-up, who is here on the lobby watching, Uehara Aichan, to take the third position representing Kiaru and Yuigao? Alright, wait, let me just do the math here. Okay, looks like you got the approval. You got the approval of Leo and Endear. Uehara Aichan, if you want to participate, come along. You're gonna be representing Keyaru and Yuigao. So the points get carried over. So let me just now, yeah, I actually kind of agree that the bug is unfortunate. So, I actually have a proposition, though it would extend the race by one more. To Leo and to Endear, would you be willing to redo that race? But I have one condition. Uehara Aichan can switch from the 911 to something else. However, Leo and Endear are locked to the 12C that Endear used and the 4C that Leo used. Would you guys be okay with that? To at least, you know, compensate for the sudden bug. Okay, so we got approval from Endear. Super Leo, how about you? Uehara Aichan, just to let you know on the conditions, Prime Legendaries and the Go Hojo NSX are the only cars not allowed in sports class. Yeah, technically you are still leading in points. Even if, say, here's the thing, Super Leo. Even if, say, you play, let's just say you place a third in this one, you would technically still be leading. So I think this is it's a win-win for you still. It still secures your lead for round 5. But for Endear, this would actually give him a better fighting chance now that we do not have to deal with the lag penalties. I just want to advise everyone, please be careful when overtaking the 2-kilometer straight because we have collision on. I highly recommend when you get to the slipstream, just overtake, don't bump draft. So again, rules. Super Leo will be locked on the 4C, Endear will be locked on the MP412C. Uehara Aichan, you are free to pick whichever card that you are best at. Okay, Uehara Aichan's now left to pick, so we are going to be redoing race 4. I mean race 5, my mistake. Okay, this is going to be an interesting lineup as Uehara Aichan is going to be switching to the Toyota GR Supra. So 2 more races down in this one, and Uehara Aichan would be fielding in for both Yuigao and Keyaru. So all 3 limiteds. So the advantage of Uehara Aichan is that they can pick a much better vehicle. Meanwhile, between RFF Super Leo and Endear, they now understand each other's pros and cons. So it is a matter of can they now fend off each other's attacks. So Endear now biting strong. Meanwhile, Uehara Aichan and the GR Supra bidding their time, understanding the map layout. Endear suddenly losing control, building gap behind the Alpha 4C. Hopefully he recovers that soon. Also, I'm gonna be switching up the soundtrack for the final race. So I'll just be in radio silence. I'm gonna be searching up with the soundtrack. Okay, going back here. Oh, we've missed a lot while I was setting up the DJ there. Uehara Aichan with the dive bomb. Unfortunately overtaken by Endear and Super Leo. Positions are still left unchanged. Endear is still leading. Super Leo in second place within the slipstream behind that McLaren. Uehara Aichan is still getting close by. Already emitting a drift run, unlike earlier with Kiaru, who was strictly in drift. RFF Super Leo overtakes Endear in that one corner right before the technical section. Endear overtakes with sheer power and makes sure he stays within first place. Uehara Aichan takes second. Super Leo may have got into an accident on that overtake and now is dropping to third. Now behind Uehara Aichan's GR Supra. Oh, don't worry, I got something much better just in 0241. Okay, Super Leo now right behind Uehara Aichan. Uehara Aichan blocks. Unfortunately, Super Leo has been denied overtake and is now lagging behind on third place. One last corner. He plays it too safe. Uehara Aichan goes wide and apparently still keeps his lead. You know what? I'll just get she because of the name. Still keeps her lead on second place, locking Super Leo down to third. Endear building tremendous gap with a 240km top speed. 250 on Uehara Aichan's GR Supra. Super Leo on the slipstream of the GR Supra, barely hanging on to 260. Endear with a bit of a drift loses all that gap, but is still more than enough. Uehara Aichan is stable. Super Leo is now still stuck in third as they enter to section 3 on the carousel. As all three guys enter into the carousel, Endear, Uehara Aichan, and Super Leo as they make way into the carousel on Aichan's camera POV. Uehara Aichan makes a decent, though slightly wide-angled run through the carousel, which is good. Super Leo capitalizing on the intersection. Unfortunately, gets blocked by Uehara Aichan and the gap widens. Endear uses this advantage to build even more of a bigger gap. Goes through the grassy section. Sends the MP412C into that one corner. Super Leo suddenly overtakes Uehara Aichan right now behind the Alfa Romeo 4C within slipstream distance. Now if she can just stay within range of the Alfa Romeo 4C, she still has a fighting chance. I'm sorry for the gender mispronunciation. She has a high chance of capitalizing on the last section on the high speed area. Super Leo slowly building back that gap from Endear's McLaren, hoping to stay within slipstream range at the end of the technical section. Ooh, and Super Leo hitting wall again, losing a bit of some momentum. Endear uses this moment to pull away Uehara Aichan. A bit of a gap against the Alfa Romeo, slowly gaining in, but still not enough. Super Leo going on a much faster, smoother, straighter run against Endear. Endear barely hanging on to that 1.5 second lead. He needs to get on a much better and higher lead to ensure he keeps the lead before the final long straight. The 12C is closing in on the 4C is closing in on the 12C right through the second carousel. Super Leo with a bit of a jump. Loses a bit on corner exit, but corner entry negates the entire gap. Endear a bit wide through that corner, but hopefully the 4C, a bit of a drift, is now locked in on the slipstream of Endear and is now gaining a bit on the MP412C. Now Endear has a choice. Would they let him pass, or would he block, or worse, would he brake check the Alfa Romeo? Uehara Aichan not being able to be in the slipstream, but is at 289, 290. Super Leo on 289, 290. Everyone is at 290, 300. Super Leo at 300, but cannot actually gain more ground against the McLaren. Uehara Aichan on 284 as they go down the downhill section. 6 seconds in. Endear with nearly the overtake, pushing Endear outside, but Endear protects his lead. Endear now in the lead as they enter to lap 2. Uehara Aichan, slowly building gap down to 3 seconds, goes through the road, not doing the shortcut as they make their way through onto lap 2. RFS Super Leo really has his eyes locked on to that McLaren, letting the little Alfa Romeo dominate, channeling his inner Nozomi Kitahara. Ooh, a fast exit by the Alfa Romeo onto that section, outgunning the McLaren, blocks the McLaren onto the long straight, and Deere may be in trouble. He needs to time his overtake properly and not prematurely try to overtake. He has a chance onto the first section. We just started lap 2. Uehara Aichan is far behind here with a 7.3 second gap. So the lead is between Endear and Super Leo. Enough of a top speed gain against the Alfa Romeo. The McLaren shoots up into first place, building gap once more. Endear goes through the intersection of the grass perfectly, building bigger gap. Suddenly, Super Leo, who has the cornering advantage, loses out on it on the hairpin and is now losing traction and ground against Endear's McLaren as they make their way, starting section 2, into the uphill. Uehara Aichan slowly recovering from that large distance. If they can just do so up until the long straight on section 2, they have a fighting chance to recover and fight off against Super Leo once again. Super Leo barely hanging on to the slipstream, and Deere barely building the slipstream as we speak. They go in through the grass and then suddenly going through wide, and Deere with a bit of some speed loss. Super Leo some speed loss from wall collision, overshooting it, but thankfully is enough to stay within slipstream distance. They go through the S-curve section, and Deere with a bit of a jump safely goes through the high-speed S-curves. RFF Super Leo goes a bit wide on the outside, slow gap is building. The low-speed section, the Alfa Romeo may capitalize, but can they? As the McLaren builds gap once again. Now entering into the downhill section through the bridge as they go back to the uphill of section 2. Building gap more against Uehara Aichan's GR Supra. A bit of some wall collision there from RFF Super Leo's Alfa Romeo. The gap widens once again with Endear leading with a 1.4 second gap. Endear just needs to make this consistent. This race is his. But he needs to make sure that that gap stays high enough until they reach section 3. The gap is too big for Super Leo to catch up, so the gap will be widening from this point forward into the long section of section 2. But this would also mean that the gap behind Super Leo is also going to decrease as Uehara Aichan in the GR Supra slowly mitigates that 7-second gap down to 6 and so forth. Meanwhile, the gap between the Alfa Romeo and the McLaren gets higher and higher. Uehara Aichan barely managed to bring down the gap, but unfortunately it's still not enough. RFS Super Leo goes to the carousel, and Deere goes wide, losing even more gap, but manages to recover with corner exit as they make their way into the technical section of the second lap of the Nordschleife. Alfa Romeo versus McLaren 12C. So just wondering here to chat, did anyone pull for either the Alfa Romeo or the McLaren 12C on their reruns or on their release banners? And Deere's kicking up a gear. He's using the full drift capacity of that McLaren despite the gap shortening once again. He goes through the grass. Super Leo with the sudden wild side into the inside of the grass. Tries to overtake, successfully overtakes Endear. Endear tries his best, but unfortunately, and Super Leo secures his lead. Endear overshoots it wide and loses even more speed. Endear needs to make one final comeback to make sure Super Leo loses out on the top speed section of the track. And they're planning it out as it is not time yet to do a proper overtake. They are on a very tight section of the Nordschleife. The gap already goes on double digits between Endear Super Leo versus Uehara Aichan. The gap slowly builds as they go through corner after corner. The 4C keeps its dominance into the second carousel. The 4C goes inside. Endear with almost 110 kilometers average speed through the second carousel as they make their way to the final corner into the long straight. So now it is a matter of not connecting on the overtake on the draft and just utilize overall power to overtake. And just like that, Endear fully secures his overtake against RFF Super Leo's Alfa Romeo 4C, recovering this top speed. The speed is high enough to negate any slipstream advantage that the 4C could make. Endear absolutely has this in the bag, redeeming themselves from the sudden ping accident from earlier. Uehara Aichan barely trying to negate and get close to the Alfa Romeo, but unfortunately, it is too big of a gap. The 4C barely hangs on, but Endear already crosses the line. Goal secures first place officially with no bug whatsoever. Congratulations to him. Yeah, also Yugo, I never mentioned top speed because the cars have their actual top speeds if we do a drag run. So I always call it by axle cap. So we don't need to actually penalize what car to use on the next one. Can we please be thrown back into the lobby now? You know what, I'll just leave manually and go back. Okay, there we go. Now we can go now to the grand finale. We're the sunny. We are now in the wet. We have not done the wet on extreme class. All our extreme class runs are all in the dry. So this is a first time for everybody here for extreme class. So we're just gonna set the cars. The additional ban here is the Pagani Huayra. Unfortunately, to anybody who owns the Pagani Huayra. Once again, for banned vehicles, don't worry, trust me, I am tracking score. For banned vehicles, we have the Koenigsegg Jesko. The, where's the Bugatti Divo? Where's the Bugatti Divo? Bugatti Divo is out. Huayra, where are you? Where's the Huayra? Pagani Huayra is also out. La Ferrari is also out. Where are you? There you go. So from 32 cars, we're down to 31 cars. I'm not gonna total the score until we finish this last race. Okay. Wait, did I actually save it? Did I actually save it? We might end up in... We're gonna end up in sports. Good thing I checked. Okay, once again, select all. Goodbye, Jesko. Goodbye, Huayra. Goodbye, Laugh. And where is Devo? Devo. Goodbye, Devo. Confirm. There we go. We're on the north loop. This is the wet section. This is lap 2. Clasher 4721, why the ban? Earlier, we agreed to round robin rules. The Pagani Huayra was banned because RFF Super Leo won in round 1 using the Pagani Huayra. Unfortunately, he cannot use it again, and by extension, as a penalty to everyone, whoever has the Huayra can also no longer use it because of Super Leo. Also, Prime Legendaries are banned for obvious reasons. Now, the final finale. Can Super Leo retain his lead on the points? Can Endear make a comeback? Or will Uehara Aichan make the biggest upset ever? The final race is upon us. 2 laps on the North Loop, the cloudy section. Super Leo in the 1-1. Uehara Aichan in the 1-1. Endear, as expected, will come in with the Strassen version CLK GTR. So 2 drifts and the grip car are gonna be in the field. And the race begins, and Uehara Aichan in the lead with Super Leo in second place, Endear in third. Endear will be the only one breaking the meta. He's going to be going in on a grip run, but can he do so with collision on and smoothly overtake everybody while keeping pace? Uehara Aichan in with the block. Endear tries to regain his racing line. Endear overtakes Uehara Aichan's 1-1. RFS Super Leo is sitting peacefully in first place as Endear tries his best to grip his way into the first section. Unfortunately, a bit of some contact there. Don't forget, this is the cloudy version. Cloudy version, the grass penalties are much more severe. So unlike the run I did earlier, which was sunny, Endear needs to be even more careful with his line taking. Super Leo, on the other hand, has the decision of going through the grass to slow down or to avoid the grass overall. Let me just finish the song before I switch to the other song. Okay, that's a much better soundtrack. Endear suddenly drifting it through the second section, goes back on the road prematurely. Super Leo slowly building gap at the Koenigsegg 1-1. Endear needs to find his rhythm on lap 1 and keep the gap as low as possible. Uehara Aichan with 3.7 seconds behind the CLK. Now down to 2 seconds in. Endear hitting wall all of a sudden, giving some gap to Uehara Aichan. Now they can coordinate on this moment, as they just need to make way through the second section's technical so that when they get to the long straight, they can ride each other's slipstream against Super Leo, who is leading by 4.65 seconds. The gap slowly reduces in favor, but now widens once again in favor of RFS Super Leo. Endear in the CLK tries his best to get his composure in. Uehara Aichan with a 5.6 second gap against Super Leo, but with just less than 2 seconds of a gap against the CLK. Super Leo needs to keep his momentum in to make sure he secures his lead. Meanwhile, Endear really needs to find that rhythm on the grip run. Once again, on this live stream of ours, this is session 4 of our masterclass of the Nurburgring Nordschleife, where we tackle grip racing in the dry section. If you have missed out on it, you can watch it back on replay. Meanwhile, we are already happening the Hall of Fame tournament, where the winner takes home a unique title for the Myogi World Order Discord server, dubbed the Green Hell Conqueror. Combatants are between RFF Super Leo, Endear, and Uehara Aichan. A smooth corner through the carousel, but Super Leo slowly building gap. Super Leo needs to be consistent on this section, else Endear has a chance to actually overtake. Cuts through the grass seamlessly and into the drift. The CLK slowly holding on to that drift. Uehara Aichan drifting its way into that same corner section. Super Leo going way too deep into the grass, cuts through the grass once more. Endear tries his best to stay within the road as cleanly as possible, maximizing the grip of the CLK, slowly reducing the gap between him and the 1-1. Uehara Aichan oversending it into that one section on section 3. Tries their best, but the gap slowly widens. Endear reducing the gap between him and the Koenigsegg 1-1 right in front of him. The tables have turned. On the previous run, Endear was leading with Super Leo behind in the Alfa Romeo. Now the roles are reversed because Super Leo is in the 1-1, fighting it off in pure speed and drift angle. Meanwhile, Endear is fighting it off with pure high RPM acceleration high traction, and better slipstream gain. They go through the carousel right now. They both need to be smooth through that one. And Deer overshooting it into the grass. Super Leo with enough exit acceleration in. But looks like this may be tactical for Endear as they enter the 2-kilometer long straight. Endear just needs to gain enough slipstream to pass the 1-1 and deny the 1-1 of any slipstream. With a smooth overtake, Endear overtakes and takes the lead. However, that is also putting him in slipstream territory for the 1-1, who is now closing in at 355 kilometers per hour. Endear fails to block the overtake, and RFS Super Leo gains the lead once again. But Endear is now back in the slipstream. Can he capitalize? Alright, nearly crashing into the wall right there. Makes it in. A smooth one-on-one to the final lap of the Hall of Fame tournament here in the Miyogi Warrior 34 channel. Racing Masters MasterClass number 4, grip run with the Hall of Fame finals between RFF Super Leo, our champion of the sports class, and Deer, our champion of the extreme class. And the combined effort of Yui Gao, who was our champion of the standard class, Keiaru, who is our first runner-up of the standard class, and Uehara Aichan, our second runner-up of the standard class. So standard class aside, it seems to be a battle just between Super Leo and Endear. Now, Super Leo needs to keep his lead to give a nearly flawless finish, but Endear needs to make sure he breaks that streak, or better yet, oh wait, what just happened there? Oh, it was just lag. Or better yet, trick Super Leo into a hefty crash to get him into third place, if that is even remotely possible with the lead they have against Uehara Aichan. The gap now slowly widens as the CLK now finds its rhythm and does the proper grip run in the cloudy version of the Nurburgring. Meanwhile, Uehara Aichan has just reached the wide shortcut section of Section 2's beginning. Super Leo tries to overtake on the inside and crashes into the wall, oversteers, and lost all that momentum, giving away the lead to Endear, who just needs to secure that lead as best as he could without crashing, without oversteering, just building momentum with a grip run with the CLK. Meanwhile, Super Leo unfortunately has to do his best to recapacitate that gap that was just built because of that one sheer burnout wheel spin accident at the slow speed section of the Nordschleife. The gap between Super Leo and Uehara Aichan has just dropped back to 10 seconds just recently. Super Leo locked in, building so much of a lead. Endear may be having some problems through Section 2 and is now already giving Super Leo a gate to his slipstream. Super Leo now on the counterattack. Can Endear block it? Endear anticipates it and blocks on the side, denying Super Leo any opportunity. Now this may be a chance for a break block if it's even remotely possible, or just simply deny an overtake altogether. Endear needs to have tighter angles if he wishes to secure his lead against RFF Super Leo. Do note, RFF Super Leo is on a drift approach, Endear is on grip. Now, if Endear can just block the inner lane where this 1-1 can capitalize, he's got this. Super Leo goes through the wide on the carousel, but Endear recovers it back, and now a sudden block between Endear and Super Leo. Endear restabilizes his lead and now keeps first place, denying Super Leo of that one wild set opportunity of a comeback. They now enter Section 3. The rain starts falling here on this section. Endear may have the advantage unless Super Leo gets a proper fluid drift flow and makes sure that he still stays within slipstream range. Endear with a bit of a hit. Super Leo going too much on the grass there. Endear with the deceleration. Shortcut was not enough for Super Leo to capitalize. Super Leo tries to overtake. Endear denies it. Super Leo overtakes once again and finally succeeds in overtaking the 1-1. Super Leo goes through the grass. Endear just right behind. He needs to strategize in order to retake the lead against RFF Super Leo. So again, to whoever is still watching this live stream, this is the final race of the Hall of Fame community exhibition match here in the Miyogi Warrior 34 channel, where we're up against the Extreme Class Champion Endear and the Sports Class Champion RFF Super Leo as they clear off on the final section. Endear touches grass too much. They go to the second carousel. Endear nearly overshoots, but so did RFF Super Leo, understeering to the outside. He just needs a clean exit here so that he can capitalize on the slipstream and make sure Super Leo, assuming Endear does overtake, does not grant him slipstream entrance. They're now on to the final long straight. 285, 290 on the bends. The bends now on slipstream. Barely 310 on Super Leo. 322, 325, increasing top speed on Endear's end. Can Endear actually make a comeback? He's now hitting 350, 360 against 320 on the 1-1. Oh, the sudden phase through. Endear overtakes. He needs to have a clean overtake here, and he can secure this, but Super Leo is just right behind. He hits wall, and Endear wins it and clears a second consecutive win in our championship match. RFF Super Leo takes second place. Endear with the second win. And with a straight third place finish, the combined efforts of Uehara Aichan and Keiyaru. If we are going to be totaling everybody's scores right now, I'll start with third place. Though consistent, I would say they did their best to fight with an astounding 6 minutes 11 lap time on their Koenigsegg 1-1. The combined efforts of Uehara Aichan and Keiyaru with 42 points in third place. Alright, and that is our second runner-up for the event. Now, let me just do a bit of some quick maths here. Now, the first runner-up with 50 points. We have the one who ruined Super Leo's win streak. Endear is me with 50 points as our first runner-up, leaving us with our overall champion in points. Our crowned Green Hell Conqueror, RFF Super Leo. What happened to our screen? You know what, let me just leave. There we go. Okay, let's just leave it there. Okay, so congratulations to RFF Super Leo for securing in points their overall win. Now, if this is just a what if ever say Super Leo and Endear traded places in round 4, there would have been an opportune moment for Super Leo and Endear to hit overtime. But that was a wonderful showcase from everyone with their whole mastery of the Green Hell, from combat to recovery to pure racing line. I hope everyone learned from this one. There will be an announcement tomorrow on our day 2 of our grip training. We have one last live stream tomorrow, but I will announce it on my YouTube channel and as a community post, and also on my Facebook page. But I will be opening a special event for tomorrow night, open to everyone. And there will be a raffle that would be mandated between me and the Racing Master devs. So for now, I would at least say thank you all so much for joining in. Yes, thank you as well for your wonderful performance, Miao Chirenge, aka Uehara Aichan. Also, regards as well to Keyaru. Hopefully next time, Yuiga Hoshi, whenever we have these community events, your internet restabilizes or you have a dedicated internet just for Racing Master, we'll look forward to your return. And to everyone, y'all have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow night for our final Nurburgring MasterClass live stream, alongside hopefully later on our announcement on the community challenge, which, by the way, would require those participating to join over on our Discord server. I would be putting it on the comment section here on after the live stream ends so that you can send in your entries. Thank you so much again to everyone, and y'all have a good night.